welcome to the Secret Discovery Program. Today I will tell you a secret top 10 most terrifying monsters of Greek mythology. The number 10. The Sphinx, known from the legend of Oedipus confronted by Oedipus. The first creature on our list is the Sphinx, a monster that was said to have the body of a lion, the head of a woman, and the wings of an eagle. The Sphinx is perhaps known best for her role in the legend of Oedipus. The story goes that as Oedipus was traveling down the road to Thebes, he is confronted by the mysterious creature. The Sphinx blocks Oedipus' path and confronts him with a riddle. Although the exact riddle is not mentioned in early Greek legend, the popular version of the story tells that the Sphinx poses the following riddle to the young traveler. What is that which in the morning goes upon 4 feet, upon 2 feet in the afternoon, and in the evening upon 3? Oedipus correctly answers the riddle: man, who crawls on all 4s as a child, then on 2 feet as an adult, and finally with the help of a cane on 3 feet during the sunset of life. Having been bested at her own game, the Sphinx throws herself from a high cliff. In some versions, the Sphinx devours herself out of anger and frustration. Had Oedipus not answered the riddle correctly, he would have been strangled and devoured by the creature, which had been the fate of so many travelers before him. The number 9. The Cyclops, known from the Odyssey confronted by Odysseus. The Cyclops were primordial giants that were said to have been born from Gaia, the earth. They were said to possess great strength and ferocity, with one bulging eye protruding from their forehead. Fearing their power, the Cyclops were thrown into the pits of Tartarus by their father Uranus. All monsters remained imprisoned when the Titan Cronus overthrew Uranus and took his place as ruler of the universe. It was only when the Olympians came to power did the Cyclops find freedom. The mighty Zeus released all monsters, who in turn would craft thunderbolts for the young Olympian. Perhaps the most famous story involving a Cyclops involves Odysseus and his woeful travels. In Book 9 of the Odyssey, Odysseus and his crew find themselves trapped in the cave of the mighty Cyclops, Polyphemus. A monster blocks their escape and devours the flesh of his captives day after day. Being known for his cleverness, Odysseus devises a plan to escape. Odysseus offers to Polyphemus wine that the traveler brought along from his ship. The Cyclops indulges and is soon very drunk. Feeling joyful, Polyphemus, a monster, asks the man his name. Odysseus replies that his name is Nobody. When Polyphemus falls asleep from intoxication, Odysseus and his men blind the Cyclops by stabbing him in the eye with a sharpened staff. Polyphemus, now enraged, cries out to the other Cyclops of the island that Nobody has blinded him. Odysseus and his men then escape from the cave of a monster by harnessing themselves to the underbellies of the numerous sheep that Polyphemus shepherds. Now completely blind, a monster feels the backs of the animals as they leave to graze. The Cyclops is unaware that his captives are escaping silently, hiding under his flock. As Odysseus sails away, he boasts to the defeated monster, who in turn attempts to sink the man's ship by hurling boulders from a high cliff. The number 8. The Chimera, known from the legend of Bellerophon confronted by Bellerophon. The Chimera was a ferocious, fire-breathing monstrosity that possessed the body and head of a lion with the head of a goat protruding from its back and a snake for a tail. The brief description of the chimera in the text of the Iliad is the earliest surviving record of the creature. The chimera is traditionally considered to have been a female, and was said to have given birth to the Sphinx and the Nemean lion. A monster was feared and believed to have been an omen for storms, shipwrecks and other natural disasters. The chimera is best known for its role in the legend of Bellerophon, a hero born to the city of Corinth. Bellerophon would be ordered by King Lobates of Lycia to slay a monster in order to atone for his past sins. Bellerophon, knowing he would need assistance for such a task, prayed and then slept in the temple of Athene. Upon waking he saw the goddess before him, leading the mythical horse Pegasus, who possessed the ability of flight. With Pegasus saddled, Bellerophon flew to the lair of the chimera in Lycia. Knowing that the creature was ferocious and would not easily be defeated, Bellerophon devised a plan. He attached a large chunk of lead to the end of his spear. Riding Pegasus, he flew towards a monster. Just as the chimera opened its mouth to scorch the hero with fire, Bellerophon drove the lead into the creature's mouth. The fiery breath of the chimera melted the lead and caused the creature to suffocate and die. The number 7. The Empusa, known from general mythology. Unlike the other creatures on this list, the Empusa is perhaps little known and does not appear in any traditional epic or popular legend. However, her frightening appearance, and her ghastly tendency to feast on human blood and flesh, more than warrants her place as number 7 on our list. The Empusa is often depicted as a beautiful woman, who transforms into a creature with sharp teeth, flaming hair, and in some interpretations bat wings. Empusa was said to be a demi-goddess under the control of the goddess Hecate, a being that is often associated with crossroads and entranceways. The Empusa would often seduce young men traveling alone. Once the unsuspecting youth was fast asleep, the creature would shift to her hideous form and devour the boy's flesh and drink his blood for sustenance. The Empusa is probably best known for her appearance in Aristophanes' The Frogs, where she terrifies the god Dionysus as he travels to the underworld. The number 6. The Hydra, known from the legend of Heracles confronted by Heracles. Number 6 on our list is the deadly Hydra, the serpent-like water monster with reptilian traits. The creature whose venom was so dangerous that even the breath exhaled by the Hydra could be lethal to any man. Additionally, the Hydra had the confounding ability to regrow any decapitated limbs with alarming speed. It was said that for every head that was severed, 2 more would grow in its place. Its lair was the Lake of Lerna in an ancient part of the Peloponnese. The Hydra would hide in an underwater cave that was said to have been an entrance to the underworld. The Hydra is known for being the second monster that Heracles encounters during his 12 labors. Before attacking the Hydra, Heracles covers his mouth and nose with cloth so that Hydra remains safe from the deadly toxins a monster emits from its many mouths. Heracles originally attacks the Hydra with either the sickle, the sword, or his trademark club. However, the hero quickly realizes that for every head decapitated, the creature quickly grows 2 more. The battle would appear hopeless. Heracles then devises a plan to turn the tide against a monster. As soon as the hero decapitates one of the Hydra's heads, he immediately takes a torch to the stump of a neck. The wound is cauterized and the creature is unable to produce any more menacing heads. Heracles eventually logs off the final head of the Hydra, effectively killing the creature and completing his second task. The number 5. The Charybdis and Scylla, known from the Odyssey, confronted by Odysseus. You might argue that because the Charybdis and the Scylla are actually two different monsters, that they should not occupy the same spot on our list of nightmarish creatures. However, the two creatures, who lived on opposite sides of a narrow strait, have become so synonymous that it is impossible to talk about one without mentioning the other. The Charybdis is never explicitly described, other than saying it is a ferocious sea monster that lives under a rock on one side of a narrow strait. The Charybdis regularly swallows massive amounts of water, which create monstrous whirlpools that are capable of destroying an entire ship. Similarly, the Scylla lives on the opposite side of the narrow strait and is believed to have been a many-headed sea monster that fed on the flesh of sailors who unwittingly traveled too close to the beast's lair. The phrase "between a Charybdis and Scylla" now is understood to mean being stuck between two dangerous decisions with no apparent solution. The Charybdis and Scylla are found within the pages of the Odyssey. Odysseus is forced to navigate the narrow strait during his travels, and Scylla too decides to travel closer to the Scylla, so as to avoid the massive whirlpool of the Charybdis. As the ship sails past, 6 of Odysseus' men are swallowed up by a monster and eaten alive. Homer describes it. They write, gasping as Scylla swung them up her cliff, and there at her cavern's mouth she bolted them down, all screaming out, flinging their arms toward me, lost in that mortal struggle. Homer. The Odyssey. Later in the story, Odysseus is stranded on a raft and must navigate the strait for a second time. This time he attempts to sail past the side where the Charybdis is waiting. His raft is sucked into the massive whirlpool, but Odysseus himself manages to stay afloat by holding onto a fig tree whose branches are dangling from shore. Odysseus eventually recovers his raft and sails away quickly. The number 4. Cerberus, known from general mythology, the legend of Heracles confronted by Heracles. Cerberus is a popular creature in ancient mythology. Hades' loyal guard dog, Cerberus was a massive hound with 3 heads that guarded the entrance to the underworld. It was said that the beast only had an appetite for living flesh and so would only allow the deceased spirits to pass, while consuming any living mortal who was foolish enough to come near him. It is said that the 3 heads were meant to symbolize the past, present and future. In other versions of the myth, the 3 heads represent youth, adulthood, and old age. While Cerberus was a notable creature of mythology, he is probably best remembered as the 12th and final labor that Heracles most performed. Heracles must enter the underworld, wrestle the beast using no weapons, and then bring Cerberus to the surface world, alive, to present to the Mycenaean king Eurystheus, the man who had originally ordered Heracles to perform these tasks as recompense for his past sins. Heracles manages to tackle the beast, then using his great strength, throws the animal over his shoulder and drags him to the mortal world. It was said that upon seeing Cerberus, Eurystheus was so terrified that he hid in a large vase and begged Heracles to return the hellhound back to Hades. The number 3. The Minotaur, known from the legend of Theseus confronted by Theseus, a grotesque abomination that possessed the body of a man and the head of a bull. The Minotaur is best remembered for his affinity for devouring flesh and his cryptic home, deep within the confines of the twisted labyrinth. The labyrinth was an impossible maze constructed by the inventor Daedalus. It was said to have been located under the palace of Knossos, the home of King Minos of Crete. The story goes that King Minos, the ruler of Crete, lost his son Androgeus when the boy was murdered in Athens. Accounts vary, but one version tells that the prince was murdered because the Athenians were jealous of his many victories at the recent Panathenaic Games in Athens. King Minos would subsequently wage war on the Athenians, eventually finding victory. As penance for the murder of Androgeus, every year the Athenians were forced to send 7 young men and 7 maidens to the island of Crete, where they would be released into the labyrinth and systematically hunted and devoured by the Minotaur. It is at this time that Theseus, the hero of Athens, volunteers to be sent to Crete as a sacrifice to a monster. Upon arriving, Theseus is aided by Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos. Before the Athenians can be trapped within the labyrinth, Ariadne releases Theseus from his holding cell and brings him to the entrance of the great maze. Theseus navigates the labyrinth and discovers the Minotaur sleeping in the center of the vast dungeon. Using the element of surprise, Theseus attacks the Minotaur and dispenses a monster with ease. The hero and the other Athenians, along with Princess Ariadne, escape Minos' palace and make a hasty retreat to Athens under the cover of night. The number 2. Medusa, known from the legend of Perseus confronted by Perseus, a monstrous creature with the ability to turn to stone any person who gazed upon her face. Medusa remains a popular monster of ancient mythology. Interpretations of Medusa differ. Some Medusa accounts describe how Medusa was born to the archaic marine deity, Sito. In this version of the tale, Medusa is born with a hideous face and a serpent's tail where her legs should be. In Ovid's Metamorphoses, Medusa was told to have once been a beautiful maiden who was transformed into a hideous monster after being raped in the temple of Athena by the sea god Poseidon. The one aspect of Medusa that remains consistent through various legends is her hair, which was said to have been composed of writhing, venomous snakes. Medusa is confronted by the hero Perseus, who was bade by his stepfather to retrieve the head of a monster. Using a mirrored shield that was given to him by Athena, Perseus viewed Medusa's reflection so as not to look directly at a monster. Perseus slays Medusa and chops off her head. From the neck of the dying Gorgon sprang the winged horse Pegasus. Perseus would use the head of Medusa as a weapon against enemies, until he eventually presented it to Athena, who attached it to the front of her shield. The number 1. Typhon, known from the Theogony confronted by Zeus. When making this list, I gave serious thought to who would occupy the seat as the most terrifying monster of Greek mythology. I asked several colleagues and took several polls. However, when we take time to truly consider all the legendary beasts, there can be only one clear winner. Typhon was known as the father of all monsters. He was birthed from Gaia, the earth, and Tartarus, the depths of hell. He was said to have been the most ferocious creature ever to roam the earth. Typhon was massive. It was said that when he stood upright, his head brushed against the stars. The lower half of his body consisted of two coiled viper tails that constantly were hissing. Instead of fingers, several dragon heads erupted from his hands. He was said to have wings that, when spread, could blot out the Sunday fire flashed from his eyes, striking fear into the heart of any living creature, even the Mytho-Olympians. Typhon is described in Hesiod's The Theogony. The hands and arms of him are mighty, and have work in them, and the feet of the powerful god were tireless, and up from his shoulders there grew 100 snake heads, those of a dreaded dragon, and the heads licked with dark tongues, and from the eyes on the inhuman heads fire glittered from under the eyelids. Hesiod, the Theogony. Typhon was so mighty that the only conceivable opponent to defy him was Zeus himself. While the other Olympians ran in fear, Zeus stood firm against a monstrous being. A great battle Typhon and Zeus ensued that caused countless earthquakes and tsunamis. The war between Typhon and Zeus was so mighty that it threatened to break the planet in two. Eventually Zeus would triumph over Typhon by casting 100 well-aimed thunderbolts to the head of a monster. Typhon was cast down into the pits of Tartarus, where he was sealed away for all time. However, the rage of this monster could not be contained. While he was trapped beneath the earth, he occasionally would experience fits of anger. His fury would manifest in the form of volcanic eruptions, and in this way Typhon continues to terrorize humanity from his earthly prison. Thank you for listening to stories. Please like and subscribe to channel.